Yo, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Real Talk with Rich. I'm your boy Rich. Tonight I have a special guest. He's part of the team Black Comic Lords on. The brains behind the curtain. My man Derek Harrison. How you doing, sir?
Rich, it's good to see you, and I'm doing great.
Absolutely. It's good to be seen, my brother. First of all, I want to apologize to everybody. Technical difficulties on my part. Craziness going on before we start the show. My wife, and I love my wife, but she decided to give me some honeydews before I got started tonight. So I'm like, really? This is what we doing? So I'm like, okay, happy life, happy wife. I ain't tripping. I went on and did it. Now in my house, you got to understand, my house has vaulted ceilings. So I couldn't use like a regular 6-foot ladder, Derek. I had to get the big boy. And that means, stretching it all the way out and being about 15, 20 feet in the air. Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do before you go on and do a show. So,
Hey, you have your priorities in the right place, though, Rich.
Absolutely.
I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. So she allows me to do this on Sunday night, so I can do those things for the little lady. So it is what it is. I want to shout everybody out, Black Comic Lords, Black Superheroes Forever, and everybody that just weighed in. I want to thank you guys for joining us on tonight. Today, we're going to talk about Nita Hawes, issues 5 and 6. We do know it is wrapped up. And matter of fact, this Wednesday, the trade, Nita Hawes Nightmare blog, will be in stores. So if you missed out on Nita Hawes Nightmare blog, I recommend you pick it up. Now, me and Derek are going to talk specifics. So issues 5 and 6, we're going to talk about it. But I promise you, it's worth the pickup. This was an amazing run. And we're just going to get into this thing and, chop it up. So, again, thanks everybody for joining us. And so, Derek, go ahead and get us started, man. We're talking about an amazing book by Rodney Barnes.
Sure. So, I guess the first thing is I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about the covers a little bit.
Yes.
Issue number 5 had 2 covers. There was an A cover by Well B, and then there was a B cover by Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
And I like both covers. I'm extremely partial to anything that has a retro look. So the one on the right by Mr. Alexander, is awesome. It's a continuation of all the previous covers in the look and feel of the Saturday Evening Post, I think.
Yes, sir.
And I think when we get to issue number 6, we'll talk a little bit about that one too. But then another thing, I'll try to do a really quick recap to get us up to speed on where things left off.
Yes, sir.
So, starts off with some murders happening, and we quickly find out in issue number 1 that the person or thing that's behind these murders is a person who's actually been catatonic in a rest home, and is Howling Henry, and he's a musician from the 60s. So, question is, what's driving all this? We quickly also find out about Nita Hawes, who is interesting. She's a professor, and we quickly find out that she has a brother who had died in the past, and both her parents also died. His brother was a victim, was a bystander in a shooting, and ended up getting caught up in that. So he's dead. However, his ghost does continue to visit her. As we go throughout the storyline, we see more and more of these murders take place, and we start to see a trend. As we find out more and more about the background of this musician, Howling Henry, we start to find out that the people that are being killed actually have connections to his past. As we go further throughout the story, we found out about a Mr. Bortman and a Mr. Carpenter, who were record company producers that were heading the label that he was on, and he had an altercation with them, and they basically not only did they shut him off, but they also told him he couldn't play anywhere else, and then they also beat him up pretty badly. So we find out that as a result of that, Mr. Howling Hank has a major axe to grind. And we also found out about a demon that has actually possessed Howling Hank. and that demon's name is Corson. Then another entity we find out about is Anansi. And Anansi is the spider god from African lore, and he joins, and we find out there's actually a rivalry between Anansi and the forces of good, and Corson, who's the demon for the forces of evil. So I think I'll pretty much leave it there, and maybe we'll pick up number 5 at that point.
Yes, sir. Issue 5. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that, there's actually a rivalry. In issue 5, though, we pick up. Let me. I'm trying to mute something.
Okay. Well, actually, while you're working on that, I'll say one more thing. So, in issue number 4, one of the last things to happen was we finally get face to face between Corson, who's basically he stepped into Howling Hank's body, and Nita Hawes, and Howling Hank basically reaches in, pulls Nita's soul out of her body, and we find out that it's been sent to hell. And the last shot that we get in the book is Nita, who's confronting Corson and several other entities, including a very interesting one, this guy wearing glasses, who, when I reached out to Rodney Barnes, the writer for the story, he said, "Hey, that's the mayor for Philadelphia." Very interesting. All right, Richard, hand back off to you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Appreciate it. So, issue 5 picks up with, we see a gentleman sitting in a wheelchair, and he appears to be at a gravesite. And we find out that the gravesite that he's visiting is for Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter has died. Well, not died. He hasn't died. I'm sorry. His son, his 2 grandsons and daughter-in-law was killed by Howling Henry. And so he's kind of sitting there mulling all of this stuff over, right? And he's looking and being reflective about his life and where his life has gone. And he's kind of thinking about his place in all of this, in terms of, he knows that he's going to, soon to join them, because, Howling Henry is very thorough. He does just didn't kill the person that does the problem, but everybody around that person gets that work. And so he's sitting there at the gravesite, and he's kind of, just looking at things, and he peers at the tombstone. I mean, at the tombstone. I don't know if we can bring that up, but yeah, that picture there. It says, here lies Harvey Boathart, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996, architect of the blues. And you said earlier about them being in the music business, and for him to say that, for them to put that on the tombstone, that this man is the architect of the blues. No, he was not the architect of the blues. This man was the exploiter of the architects of the blues. So let's be clear that, this guy, Harvey Boathart, along with Mr. Carpenter, exploited Howling Henry. And so Howling Henry is kind of on a revenge spree, killing spree. And so it's just interesting how Rodney Barnes opens the issue with this somber situation, because it's a lot going on in this issue.
Hey, quick shout out to Gordon. I mean, he made the point too. I love how Rodney Barnes shows the insidious side of the music industry in the series. So shout out to Gordon.
Yeah. Shout out to Rodney Barnes real quick. They just greenlit season 2 for Winning Time. I haven't been able to watch the show just yet. I'm gonna binge it. It's on HBO Max, so I'm gonna get to it or whatever. But I do know they greenlit for season 2, so they'll be back next year. So my man Rodney's doing a lot.
To that point, not only the show, but there's also a podcast that he has, which is really good. He had an excellent interview with Snoop Dogg, and then an interview with the actor that plays Magic Johnson's father. That was inspirational, just to find out how he got to where he got. All the podcasts have been good, but those two really stick out for me.
Okay, that's what's up. But yeah, man, getting back to this issue though, after we transition from this particular issue, we go into some of Nita's background, and it takes us to a scene in the book where, you know, she's having a time at Disney World or somewhere. The only reason why I say Disney World is because I know that they have these saucer cups at Disney World. And so she's walking hand in hand with her father and her mother, and they're riding on this ride, and they're just having a good time. The mother's pregnant with Jason, our friendly neighborhood ghost, and she's just having a memory, so to speak, which is interesting in that, you know, memories often remind us of where we are, if that makes any sense. And so, even though this is a beautiful scene, it's a scene caused by Corson. He kind of gives us, you know, like the devil he is, he kind of shows us the things that we want, but then he strips away that and gives us what really is. And, you know, we see Nita, who has been snatched away, and she is in the court of Corson in hell. And so it's like, okay, dude, you know, these are the kind of games you're playing. And, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, when you talk about torture, matter of fact, he uses the phrase tortured by sentiment, or that's what she says. As she talking to him, that this is torture by sentiment, that she knows that her family is the closest thing to her, the most dearest thing to her. And she has all of this regret in her life. And yet Corson plays on these heartstrings, and, you know, he has no sympathy. You know, he does not fight fair. But, you know, she's thrusted into this memory about her parents, and, you know, she's kind of startled by it because she's in his presence, and, you know, she confronts him about it. And it's funny because she says, if you pull up that post or that page, it's right after keep going. Yeah, that one there. You know, he says, we start small around these parts, but don't worry, these things are about to get very interesting. And so, you know, she's, you know, when we think about what hell is, some people, you know, think that it's a place that is an inferno with burning fire and souls are tormented and whatnot. And it is. But some people think that hell is the truth learned too late. And, you know, there's a little truth to that, and he uses that, unfortunately. But it's weird. We're gonna get into, you know, him kind of tipping his hand, so to speak. You know, he kind of blew it, and you I like what you said about that. But we'll get to that in a second. But, you know, we see here though that, you know, she's standing before him. She's not afraid at all. You know, you think you wake up in hell, you know, so it's like, oh my God, why am I here? You know, that kind of thing. No, she's pretty comfortable. So, you know, I mean, what do you think about this exchange, bro?
I really like the exchanges, and there's something she said. I think she said, but I'm not afraid because reality has always been worse than my dreams.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You know, so, and you find out a little bit more about this, you know, later. But she's really, her mind is stuck in her past and all the tragedies of her past. So because of that, I don't think she's really fearing anything in front of her. She's so far stuck in her past.
Yes. And, you know, that's the one thing about pain is that, you know, when you've had a lot of pain in your life and then something else kind of comes along, you're kind of numb to it. And I think that's just what she is. She's just numb. I like the way, you know, she kind of gets into, but that's kind of jumping ahead. Which is weird though, because we get this scene where she's talking to Corson, and then it changes again. Rodney Barnes shifts a whole lot in this issue. He packed a whole lot, even though this is a short issue. He packed a whole lot in this issue. The next scene that we see that the detective that's been working with Nita is at a crime scene, and Nita is kind of laying there on the ground, and it's like the place where Corson snatched her up at. So her body is there, but her soul is in hell. We see that. And of course, we see, this is our first view of our first scene of Anansi. Anansi is talking with the detective, and, it's an interesting exchange. And, it's funny because Anansi is clearly trying to help, but he needs help. Even though he's a god or whatever, he's a god that recognizes that he has to pull resources from wherever, and whether that be the detective or whether that be Jason himself or whatever, he has powers, but he's not, powerful to the point where he can just make certain things happen. He has to work with what he has, so to speak. So I kind of like Rodney Barnes' depiction of him. He's quick to remind everybody that he is a god or whatever, and it's kind of funny because he kind of alludes to that in the issue, but he's very, very candid. We see this African god who has this mythical lore to him, and Rodney Barnes has made him very, very relatable, and he's very impressionable, if that makes any sense. So I really enjoy Anansi in this book. It's a different take for sure, and I don't know if he's going to do anything else with Anansi as far as the Nita Hawes book or the Philadelphia universe, but I definitely hope we haven't seen the last of Anansi in terms of this book. So what do you think of this exchange she's having with the detective?
Well, I think the big thing I noticed is that our detective has now gone from being highly skeptical of anything that she's been told by Nita, who's an actual human, to now she's taking and following advice of a Nazi, right? And not questioning it that much. She doesn't know why, I don't think, but she's not questioning it, and she actually takes that advice forward. I guess in a few pages in an interaction she has with the police officer,
right?
In the lockup.
Yeah.
So she's gone on a journey too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody, it's funny. The Nita and the detective are very, very skeptical. Nita kind of is skeptical by fault of her pain in terms of what she's gone through. The detective here, she's skeptical based on just who she is as a person. She's kind of grew up in a level of skepticism, but Nita grew up in the church, so she's hurt by God, so to speak. She blames God for some of the stuff that's going on. But this detective, she's kind of been, skeptic from day one. And so for her to kind of see what's going on now, it's kind of like, well, I've seen crazy things happen. In fact, that last panel that, when we getting ready to switch again, it says, not sure that this night can get any crazier. Because again, there's a rhyming demon on the loose. And Nancy tells her, when you lock this rhyming demon up or this body or whatever, Holly Henry is catatonic right now. So it's like, you need to, chain him. You need to, secure him because of who he is. And of course, I think there's still a little skepticism there, but at the same time, she's very aware, based on the things that she's seen, that, I need to really take this dude's advice. And so it's like she's with another cop, and when they get ready to, secure him, and so it's kind of like, are you sure we kind of doing too much here? But it's like, no, we got to be cautious. And of course, we find out why that is later on. So it's interesting. Needless to say, her journey. I'm hoping that we see her, this officer, again as well, because it's been pretty cool to watch her come out of her skepticism and see her eyes kind of open to the world behind the world. And of course, we move right back to Corson and Nita. And Nita ain't never scared. Shout out to Nita. She ain't never scared, you know. And Corson actually says, aren't you afraid? Like, dude, I'm from West Baltimore. By comparison, this ain't ish. So, it's interesting, how she puts that, because it's almost as if she's been waiting for the other shoe to drop in her life anyway.
Mhm.
And so it's just like, I done seen everything, so this ain't nothing. If this is all you got, then I'm comfortable. So, I mean, what do you think about her boldness of that? Because she's not standing in faith in this situation. She is clearly standing in her aggravation of what her life has become.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, she has clearly reached the point where, she might have some fear, but that fear is nothing compared to her frustration and almost numbness, I think, to as a result of everything that's happened in her past. So that's overcoming whatever fear she has.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's one thing to feel that way, but it's another thing to say that.
Yeah.
To a demon of hell, right?
I mean, look at her face, man. Shout out to Jason Sean Alexander, bro. I mean, what I'm saying? He pictured that sister. I mean, she just like, really, dude?
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of mad. It's like she's kind of mad that, what I'm saying, that it's not worse. You know what I'm saying? She's just like, do your worst. Corson, what I'm saying? This is nothing. I ain't even tripping. But, Corson, he's a demon, so he's not put off by it. He's actually impressed. And,
Yes.
what I'm saying? And he actually says, exactly. He says, which begs the question, what is real and what is true? And so he turns and says, the world believes that I and those of my life hate mankind. And then he says, fake news. And I just think that is hilarious, because we know that term fake news, that is a nod to Donald Trump. That was one of his things that he kind of stood on when it came to liberal platforms and the news and that kind of thing. It's all fake news, and he's trying to win her over. He's not completely honest with her, but he's clearly trying to win her over. So I just thought that was hilarious, man.
Just a quick shout out to Gordon. He had added a comment that Nita is hardcore, unflappable. 100% agree. Azorius Tiger, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Love the Alexander covers on Nita Hawes. Absolutely, those are great. And Azorius, I see you on several of the other lives that I participate on in chat. So good to see you here. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for hanging out with us, for sure.
Also, paperbacks and soundtracks.
Hey.
Saying Nita Hawes is flat out amazing. Also, a comment about Winning Time being amazing TV. Thanks for joining us.
That's what's up. So, now we're in this scenario where Nita's having this conversation with Corson, and he's trying to persuade her from the standpoint that we have this bad rep. We're not as bad as the big guy in the sky is making us to be, But she calls him on his BS, and she says, "So torture's the key to freedom." And he turns around and says, "For some, yes." He says, "Nita, my dear, to view yourself amongst the rank and file would be a mistake. And so he's really, at this point, he's pandering to her.
Well, he's pandering to her, but I almost started wondering, and there's some other things that come out a little bit later.
Right.
He may actually be recruiting her.
Yes. That's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. So there's some scary stuff.
Yeah. But I like how she fires right back and she said, "You sound like one of those dry begging dudes at the club around last call." I just like, wow. You know what I'm saying? And that's something like a sister would say. There's some cat trying to get his Mac on. But it's interesting though, because she has gone into this thing as if it's not really a big deal. I think she knows it's a big deal, but for her to handle it, she has to kind of treat it this way because it keeps her from, I would say, being or appearing to be afraid. She knows that, look, this dude just snatched my soul out of my body and brought me here. So I could play this one or two ways. I can, try to be gangster, which is what she's doing, or I could just be frightened and horrified and terrified. And, she doesn't want him to win. And she doesn't want him to think that he has any quote unquote advantage over her, or even though he clearly does. So she plays this defense mechanism to such a degree that, what I'm saying, again, it's impressive to him. So
do you think that she perhaps thinks she's just in a dream, or do you think she knows this is real?
Here's the thing. She asked him, this may, and she said, this probably isn't even real. She says that. Mm-hmm. She's so far gone in terms of seeing, she doesn't know if Jason is real, or she thinks he's real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's never fully confirmed that Jason, her brother, the ghost, is actually a real apparition or just somebody in her mind. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So this all definitely could be a part of it. Rodney Barnes he's kind of taken us to the cusp of telling us, which is funny because when we get to issue 6, we see that her interaction with Jason becomes less and less. Mm-hmm. So we don't know. If this is how she dreams, because this is Nita Hawes' nightmare blog, and nightmares generally don't happen. The only way you really quote unquote have a nightmare is you have to dream.
Yep.
So this could very well be, but again, we just don't know. Shout out to Rodney Barnes. We need you back on the show, bro.
Yeah.
But I think, and this is just Richard. This is Rich. I think this is real.
Me too. I do.
So for it being real, in my thoughts, it's like, okay, this is what my lot in life is kind of drawing me to. I'm here, so I might as well play it out. You know what I'm saying? And so she's kind of, she's being very, very, I would say, candid and somewhat nonchalant. She's kind of blowing him off, but I think that's just a ploy for her to kind of like deal with Corson, because you know how it is as human beings, we will do things to like show that we're not afraid, even though we might be. It's just like if you somebody that is in a crowd of people and you mean mug a lot of people, you may be really nervous or scared around those people, but you do this mean mugging because it's a defense mechanism to keep people at a distance and that kind of thing. I think this is kind of what she is doing, because let's just be honest. If any of us woke up in hell and we having a conversation with the devil, 9.5 times out of 10, we ain't got no smoke for Satan like that. No. I'm just saying. But, it's interesting, though, 'cause she says, this is what she says. Appealing to my ego won't work, son. No more digging up my hurts. She's letting him know that all your little tricks and all of this pandering, and it's not going to get you anywhere. So he turns around and he says something to her I think is very powerful. He says, I see perhaps it's time to present that which all living beings fear, and that is truth, which is ironic because the devils are the Lord of lies. so, we leave that party, and now we're back at the station or the area where Howlin' Henry is catatonic on a gurney. So, officers there, she's like chaining to arrest him. Let's put this guy away. He's looking at her like, this dude is catatonic. He ain't moving. He ain't going nowhere. She's like, nah. We got to handle this the right way. So, I mean, what do you think of this scene, particularly in regards to seeing him there? And, we know he's cut up a bloody path, but to just kind of see this guy, I think that's the most frightening thing about this story is the fact that you got this catatonic 70-year-old blues singer who has lost his shoes.
and sings before he kills.
Yeah, and sings before he kills. Pretty creepy, man. So, I mean, what do you think about this part of it?
I could see in a horror movie setting every single time. Every single time he ends up in custody, and the police aren't taking this seriously, right? And you know what's about to happen. It's like those situations in horror movies where somebody's about to do something stupid, right? So that's the feeling I got. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting, and it's interesting because here is we leave this scene automatically. We have this small exchange, and then we go to another scene, and now we're at this hospital morgue. I don't know, where Nita is just kind of.
I wasn't sure either, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it might be a morgue though.
Yeah. And, Jason is sitting by her bedside but it's weird because they got, it's hard to make out what this really is. Jason is blaming himself for her being there, which is funny because she's carried the guilt of his death all her life. And now that she's quote unquote absent from her body, he's blaming himself for her being there. And so Anansi shows up, and Anansi is, Anansi is sympathetic, but he has a biting wit about him to where it's like, yeah, dude, I understand, but we got work to do. I understand you're tripping, but we really got some stuff we need to do. And he talks real brief about his limitations as being a god. He says, as a god, I can only adventure to Hades in wartime. As a spirit being, you have no such limitation. So he's saying, look, dude, you're going to have to make this journey, for me. And, he welcomes it. He says, I'll do whatever it takes. And, he's like, okay, we're about to find out. Yeah. And so it's interesting to see Jason in this position, because if he thought he could do something, I think he would have done it. But here's Anansi informing him, well, you really can, it is really something you can do. We're going to find out if you can. Which goes back to like a few issues when Jason saw this horde of demons or angels that were, angry or were a part of, they were going somewhere, they were actually going into Baltimore, and how he was able to follow them. So it's something about him as well, he's connected to them, even though he's not an angel, he's not a demon, but he's a spirit that is able to kind of go to and fro. And it's weird because he hasn't been able to move on because of his sister. She hasn't been able to move on because of him. It's jacked up. They both got the same issue. They both kind of bound to one another for the same reason. And so when you think about life, that's kind of how life is. You know, there are people that we live with, or people that we love and we care about. And as much as we would like to move to say, you know what, if I had my way, I would move to the Canary Islands. But if I leave and go to the Canary Islands, then my father and my family and my daughter that's here locally, I wouldn't be there for them. So I'm kind of tethered to them because of my relationship. So I see that kind of dynamic playing out in this situation. They really can't let each other go because they're too important to one another. And that's a nightmare all by itself, but that's life. So, I mean, what do you think about this strange situation with Jason and his sister Nita?
You know, I hadn't really thought about it that way. I mean, I definitely looked at it from a standpoint of her not, her being stuck because of him. But I didn't think about him being stuck because of her until we got to this point. And I still don't really know how to process that, to be honest. So I don't have anything to add for that. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where initially he was trying to help her with her case, right? And then it's all of a sudden, it's kind of like he was helping her. And so he thinks that his help or his hand in this kind of caused Corson to kind of like be on his radar, on her radar.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that it's one of those things where they don't want to let each other go, and they're using every excuse to not. So this situation, though, is kind of like, man, if I had not helped her when she was looking at that article post, when that security guard and that guy was saying that he kept hearing noises, I should have just told her to leave that alone. Yeah. He didn't do that. She was like, gotta help.
Yeah, well, it's now think about it a little bit more. It's clear that this is really setting up the fact that as long as she's in the state she's in, think about all the tragedy. He doesn't feel like he can leave her, right? So that's very powerful, especially when it seems like he had a reward that he could go to when he wanted to.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we spent a lot of time on this issue. Let's try to wrap this up and get to issue 6. Tell me, man. We see the situation with Corson and how he is kind of dealing with Nita, and he's not able to get her to bite. So he tells Sheriff Gatlin to take her to the wasteland, which is basically a part of hell where there's nothing. and some people think that may be the worst hell that there is, to actually be in a place of total nothingness. In our natural society, when you go to prison and you do things that are against the rules, they may put you what they call the hole. There's nothing for you to look at. There's nothing for you no one for you to talk to. And it's a torture in and of itself. And so it's interesting. He's not able to get it, but so Corson's thought is, you know what? I'm just going to stick you over here. That's it. And it's funny to me because the mayor of Philadelphia, he said, he don't say nothing in this whole issue except these 3 words: "Good work, boss." And he's just like, shut up. You know what I'm saying? It's so funny. It's so funny, man, because I don't know what Rodney Barnes his connection to this mayor, why he put this mayor in hell. And I'm thinking it maybe have something to do with the guy that was mayor in Philadelphia when they bombed the people that were part of the MOVE organization. But I'm thinking that's who this is, because I know Mr. Barnes, shout out to my man, he can be petty in his books at times. And I think this is a petty, I think this is one of a petty moment for this particular issue. So as we wrap this up, get ready to go to talk about issue number 6, man. Just give me your final thoughts on the issue itself.
I thought it was good. I felt like it was extremely short, and the first time I read it, I'll be honest, I was, thinking, wow, it's probably too short. But to your point, there's a lot packed in it, and it does set up a few things. It explains why Anansi isn't confronting Corson directly in hell.
Yes.
It also sets up Jason and Nita being bound to each other, and neither one feeling like they can move on.
Right.
And then finally, it does. You see these great exchanges between Nita and Corson. So I think it definitely makes it worth it.
Right. Absolutely. So with that, we're going to go ahead and transition to issue number 6. And we're going to try to keep this one very, very short, because we want to talk about some other stuff too while we're here. But we're going to try to hit the key points.
One quick thing.
Yeah,
I was going to share. So these covers here.
Yes, yes, please do.
All right, so here's the first cover, cover A, once again by Well B, and you got an image of the preacher. I forget the preacher's name, and then a person on the cross behind that. Of course, you find out Nita's on a cross too, and she's been put in the wastelands. And then we've got the Alexander cover, cover B, which is great. You got Nita looking at it in the mirror at herself and sees Jason in the background, and then her painting the portrait there. Once again, Saturday Evening Post. These just, once again, great covers.
Yes, man. And the thing is, what I love about these particular books or whatever, the covers are amazing, of course. I love the Saturday night or the Saturday Evening Post covers. I collected most of them except the one where Corson's butt crack is out. I just refuse to put that in a long box. But everything else that these guys have done has been amazing. And so shout out to the artistry, man, on this book, because it's pretty good. The interior art is amazing as well. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's certainly mine. And I'm hoping that these books really take on a cult following in terms of if Philadelphia turns out to be the smash hit that I think it's going to be, when it hits the TV screen or the movie screen, these books are going to go for a mint. Mm-hmm. And just the variant covers that are available, they haven't really gotten into a lot of them as far as Nita Hawes go, but I definitely know that with the success of Philadelphia, we get a little bit more variant covers on that side. But I'm pretty sure when Nita Hawes returns for issue 7, then we'll probably get a few more variant covers. And I don't know if they're going to keep up the Saturday Evening Post theme. They may do something different, but I like the guys. Yeah. I like the fact that these guys believe in doing things fresh. Stuff doesn't get stale with them. So
just a question I just want to ask a question in the chat. If anybody wants to let us know, what's your favorite overall cover so far? If you want to just tell us, we can pull it up and take a look at it. All right.
Absolutely. So Fire Next Time Part 6. That's the name of the story of this particular book. It opens with our little buddy Jason. And Jason is actually giving us a detailed description of what it was like when he got shot. I thought it was interesting that Rodney Barnes opened the final issue of this story arc with this particular story, because it's just out of nowhere. If something is random to me, this is the most random thing that he could do. Now we saw in a few issues back where how he died. He was reading a comic book. He was standing on a corner, and he just happened to be a victim of gunfire. But now what we're getting here is this introspection from Jason in regards to his transition, being a live little boy and then moving into the spirit realm, how he was able to how he was able to become this ghost that Nita is fond of, and it's just weird. It's just a weird thing. I love it, but it's definitely weird, bro. So, I mean, what do you think about him opening the issue like this?
It was kind of curious, but I think by the time you get to if you think back to what we learned at the very end of number 5, and then you figure out what happens at the end of number 6, I think it all ties together to make sense, right? But as you're reading it, it's interesting to lead off with that. By the way, I think we have one person, I'm not sure who it is, from Facebook. Favorite cover is one with the girl at a bar holding a gun next to a devil or something. That's your favorite one, Rich?
Yeah, that's the one with Corson's butt crack out. You like that one? Got terrible taste. What can I say? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I understand that it's art, and I understand that it's a certain sentiment. I was just like, it's just like I just can't rock with Corson like that. No, Corson. It's bad enough that you're doing what you're doing, but you sitting at a bar and Nita's got a gun on you or whatever, and you just looking down at her like, hey, what's going on? Like you picking her up or something. I don't know. That's just kind of odd to me. So. Just it's an iconic issue, an iconic cover, and I think a lot of people do like that cover because she just has this look on her face though that's like, what?
All right, that's okay. That was Mike Carson. Thanks,
okay.
Mike. Yeah,
that's what's up. Shout out to Mike.
I like that one, but I didn't notice the button until Richard brought it up in his show. And then let's see, Gordon said his favorite one was the Saturday Evening Post cover with Anansi. So that's number 2, I think. Right?
That's my favorite cover. That's my favorite cover with Anansi on it, rolling the dice.
And then he also said issue 6 cover B as well.
Yeah. That's the one with the that's the Saturday Evening Post cover, the one you just showed. So, not the one that you just showed, but the cover B.
Number 6 Saturday Evening Post.
Yeah, right. So we get this situation where, we discover how he dies, and then of course he's on the other side, and
there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Gordon. Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate that.
Cody S. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, what's going on? So we see that he is he gets shot. The shock of it, the heartbreak of it, it causes him to kind of like just linger. So we understand that people that quote unquote die, or what we can kind of conclude that when people die quote unquote peacefully, they're able to kind of move on. But when there's kind of a shocking value to it, or something happens like this regard, he kind of lingers. So he saw his funeral. I do think that is something that I've always been curious about when it comes to death. Do people see, or do they hang around to actually see people, say goodbye to them? And I, personally, I don't think that they do. I think people just move on, but it's a nice sentiment nonetheless. And so we see this situation. We see this young guy who is seeing his sister heartbroken, because you got to remember, she lost her parents, and Jason was the only family she had, and now he's gone. And so it's kind of like he was so devastated by it, he couldn't leave her. He refused to. He could have moved on, but he refused to leave her with that kind of gaping feeling, if you will. One thing I've learned about grief in my own personal life is that grief is nothing but love with nowhere to go. And so when you've been giving love to someone and then all of a sudden they're gone, that love that you would give them, it has nowhere to go. So you're just stuck with it, And the only way you're able to deal with it is either cry or work your way through it, but it stays with you, if that makes any sense. And so this situation with Jason is no different.
So that's very close to that Vision quote from WandaVision. Or what is grief but love persevering?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we kind of move along from that, and of course, Nancy's getting ready to prepare Jason for what he's going to deal with, and it's interesting because he says she's lying there because of me. If I'd have just moved on, and then Nancy interrupts him, and he's like, calls him a baby ghost. I just think that is hilarious that Nancy would call a child a baby ghost. But he makes it clear to the kid though that this is not happening because of you. That this happened because Corson snatched her. You had no control over it. You're not to blame for that. But that goes to our ability or our penchant to handle tragedy in our lives. It's kind of like, let's say you and your wife, you wanted ice cream, and your wife says to you, I'm gonna go to the store and get you the ice cream. And you like, yeah, go ahead and get it. You sure you want me to come with? No, I got it. It's like, okay. And she goes and gets ice cream. And she has an accident on her way to getting ice cream for you. You blame yourself because it's like, if I had not wanted ice cream, she would still be alive. And it's not your fault, but as human beings, it's just in us, so to speak, to kind of like determine our own fate. We like to think that we're always in control, and that when things happen, it's because of what we did. But how many people know that people die every day? Accidents, unfortunate circumstances. It happens. His situation, he was reading a comic book on the corner. He wasn't a drug dealer. He was a kid standing in the comic book, happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so, but it's just in us though to hoard guilt or to, and that's the thing I think that the devil, in this case, Corson, plays on. He plays on our guilt, our inability to see ourselves free of responsibility when it comes to fate and when it comes to life. It's like, okay, I'm in this situation because of this and this. You don't think about, well, time and chance happen to everyone. That's life. So, for whatever reason, we have this kind of thinking. And I just like how Rodney Barnes kind of plays with that in the story. So it's very, very, very dope how he puts it together. So he looks at her, talking about Nancy, as he gets ready to close out. He says, "We about to find out what you really made of, baby girl." And I like how he puts that because he knows that Nita has some power. And so it's going to take that to beat, Corson. And so I don't even know, of course he's not there, but to know that Corson is, has told Sheriff Gatlin to take Nita to the wastelands, and she's strung up on a cross in the middle of a field with nothing around, but he has this ray of hope for her, even in that situation. So it's pretty dope. But we move from there to the Carpenter estate. In reading this story, it's funny. In reading this story, you can almost lose sight of the of the gore that's about to happen.
Oh yeah.
It's there's so much to think about when you read the story. The reason why I love Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog is that the story is very, very deep. The art is amazing. And there are other parts that you'll miss. So it's like you read this first couple of pages with Anansi and with Jason and with Nita, and then you forget that there is a blues singer, catatonic 7-year-old man with a demon rhyming on the killing spree. It's like, yeah, don't forget about that part. Don't forget about that part. So, but we're at the Carpenter estate. And so we see that this place is surrounded by guards, and, you know, Mr. Carpenter is not exactly, what's the word? He's not exactly confident.
Yeah. He's kind of resigned, I think, almost.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
He kind of knows that, you know, death is waiting. So we move from there. And I kind of want you to kind of deal with the next part there. Talk to us real quick about, you know, this situation. We pick up in the wasteland, and Corson is sitting there talking to Jason, who's magically, however, in hell now.
Yes.
So just run us through this kind of scene here, man.
Well, I guess first thing is Jason says, "I'm not afraid of you, Corson."
Yes.
Corson says, "You should be," which is interesting because now you know Jason is a Hawes because he's doing the same thing that Nita did, right?
Right.
And Nita's doing everything she can to tell Jason to go away. You know, she doesn't want him to get stuck down there with her, and he basically tells her, even if it means me having to stay here forever, I'm not going to leave your side. So once again, you see his devotion to her and what Anansi has told Jason, which is, hey, it's you. It can't be me. It's got to be you that goes in here to take care of her. You know, he's taking that to heart. So that's the net of that exchange there. And it sets up another interesting exchange a little bit later after we go back to the Carpenter estate.
Yeah. So Holland Henry's on the scene. He's singing and rhyming. And you know, it's what Howlin' Henry does. You know what I mean? It's last call, folks. Bar's about to close. Your tip, your waitress, because it's the end of the show. Now there's one tab open. I'm going to close it myself because this one sin was showing up top shelf. He said, "Oh, look at this. Some of y'all want to stay." Yes, he wants to hear old Henry play. And so all of a sudden these demons come out of Howlin' Henry. And they do what they do, which is tear up and shred and make chaos and mayhem.
And I may ask another question here for you and the chat, if anybody in the chat wants to add in. But what do you think about the artwork, how they portray Howling Henry attacking when he does attack?
I mean, it's very disturbing. For me, it's one of those things that we got to remember that this is called Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog. And so just think about your own nightmares that you may have. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for you, Derek. I can't speak for nobody in the chat. But I've had some creepy nightmares over the years of my life. And while I stop to say that they're not this creepy, I would say that they're creepy enough to where I would not want to live in my dreams, if that makes any sense. I think it's one of those things where Rodney Barnes was probably like, what if we had a demon that could just throw up, you know, insects and worms and every disgusting, creeping thing that you just would not want to be near you. I mean, it's very disturbing. You have to be careful with some of this stuff. Shout out to my man Otis. Otis did a couple of posters that are kind of reminiscent of this work in this book. Very, very creepy. And this stuff, it stays with you, and it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it, if that makes any sense. That's the thing about this art that I think is powerful, is that once your eyes capture it, it's kind of there. And so you cannot look away. You have to kind of like take the whole ride. It's like a nightmare. You know, you can't get out of a nightmare unless you wake up. But you know what I'm saying? Most times you just got to go through the ride. Eventually you do wake up, but you know, it's just, I wouldn't want this. I'll say it like that.
No.
I mean, what you think about it? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, this is creepy. I mean, this is.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely creepy. If it were if I were to choose how this demon would attack people, I don't think I would choose to portray it this way myself. Nope. But it's definitely something you don't forget, and I'm just curious about other people's thoughts about this.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's very. One of the things about it is, it's hard to. It's chaos. It's almost like organized chaos in the sense that you see these limbs and these teeth and these worms and they're just everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And they're all emanating out of Henry, but there's no order. It's no order to how they come out or how they attack. They just kind of they're like feral almost in a sense. If you ever been around feral animals or whatever, you know, those are animals that are not domesticated. Those are animals that are kind of like, they're wild. This is like a wild scene. And this is all Corson. Yep. You know, this, you know, he has a quote unquote form that he appears to Nita to, but this is him as well. So, you know, it is what it is. I wouldn't want any dreams.
Yeah, Gordon says it's freakish and creepy. Agreed.
Absolutely. So we move from this scene. He's doing his thing. He's killed up the last, you know, he's doing it. Well, not the last, but not yet anyway. We move from that back to hell, where Jason is with Nita and Corson. Sheriff Gatlin shows up. Sheriff Gatlin doesn't really talk a whole lot. He just takes orders. So, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to take the boy away from where he is. Because that's the other thing, too. It stops being hell with Jason there for her.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Which is why he tells Gatlin to take him away. We got to put him somewhere else. Because as long as he's there together, neither one of them are tormented. They're really at peace. And so I thought that was pretty dope how Corson recognizes, you know what I'm saying,
well, he recognizes that, but then he does something I think is kind of probably the dumbest thing he's done, right?
Yes. Could you please talk about that, bro? Please talk about that.
Okay, so, you know, he's told Johnny Gatlin, who has his own series, by the way, that Rodney Barnes has written. It's on Rodney's Substack. He tells Johnny to take Jason away, and, you know, Jason doesn't go away, and then he asks a question. He says, "Answer something for me, Corson. Why did you use the memory of Jimmy Sangster to get to Nita?" And I think one thing we missed earlier was there was a conversation that Nita had with Jimmy. It was actually Corson pretending to be Jimmy. right? Trying to mislead and trick her. And Corson gives a lengthy explanation of the reason why. And the short version of that is he knows that she's kind of gotten past some of the trauma in her life, but the way she did that was by covering it up with her by using her relationship with Jimmy. So he kind of picked at that scab in order to get deeper, right?
Right.
Why he told Jason this?
Yeah.
Because he basically gave, this is like, the 1960s Batman. You tie the person up on the conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt is like 90 feet long if you're the villain, and then you just leave Batman alone with Robin to figure out how to get loose. And that's basically, in my view, that's what Corson did right here.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was kind of hilarious. But see, that to me, that kind of speaks to the arrogance of Corson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That he could even put that out there and think that it wasn't going to bite him in the backside. So, but he found out. He found out real quick. What happened. So.
Yeah, and I think the key passage. Let's see. Jason ends from this conversation with Corson. His takeaway is, he says, "Do you hear him, Nita? It's not your fault that Mom and Dad died. It's not your fault that I died, but it is your fault that you allow the pain to stop you from living life."
Yes. And that is probably the most important panel in this whole story, because that has been her nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely the watershed kind of comes in after that.
Yeah, and then if we move on, then the next interesting thing that happens. Now, remember, Anansi had said already, I can't go to hell and get her back. You have to do that, right?
Yes.
So whatever happens after Jason says this to Nita, and then Nita agrees with Jason, something happened there, and I don't know what. Maybe Richard. But all of a sudden, Nancy shows up.
Let's look at what he says. She says, "You're right. I know it wasn't because of me." This is Jason. He says, "I just miss you so much, miss Mom and Dad so much, but it's not my fault." He turns around and says, "That's all I need to hear." He responds to Nita's declaration that's all I needed to hear. Because here's the thing. When it comes to things like wartime, certain things have to be kind of established or declared. Because it's like, okay, demons cannot tempt or cannot torment without, I would say, access. It's like, okay, Corson has had access to Nita because of her inability to forgive and forget and move on and deal with her life. That goes back to her exchange with the preacher. Mm-hmm. So now she's actually in a position where, you know what, Corson, you're out of bounds. What you're doing is wrong. So now I can cross over. I got access because now you've been proving to be out of line. Your game is up. You got to let her go. So, because at this point, he's supposed to willingly let her return. So, Nancy's not even taking the chance to like, you know what? I'm not even going to give you the chance to be like, go on, take her back. We bringing the fight to you. So, and Corson's like, damn it, Nancy, this is none of your business. And so Anansi reminds him of who he is and why it's his business. And so we get that, Anansi is on the side of light in the story this is darkness that Corson is a part of, or it's the forces of light versus the forces of evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says to Anansi, he says, "You may be a god, Anansi, but this is my realm, my place of power." And he's like, "Corson, you think I don't know that? That's why I brought backup." So we see these angels kind of come in, and we're not even privy to what happens, because guess what? We move to another part of the story. Just when it just start to get good, Rodney Barnes just yanks us by our brain collars and brings us to the estate, the the Carpenter estate, where Howlin' Henry is wrecking shop. It's interesting because we see him doing the dirt and the cops show up just like they always do. Whether it's a movie, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's a show, the police is always late. Everybody's been killed, everybody's been maimed, and the cops finally show up. But he doesn't kill everybody. He's just kind of making his way through the people. The officer says she's I guess they're watching Howling Henry do this from a distance. And so
because the Carpenter estate is being heavily protected, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah. And so they see you see this body laid out in front of them. I guess they get out the car, and she's like, "Call for backup now." I'm like, "Where are you going?" And she says, "I'm lucky to close this case." So she, her partner calls for backup or whatever. She sees Howlin' Henry kind of doing his thing. And so she kind of runs away, I guess, to try to find Mr. Carpenter.
Yeah. She's running to the house to find him and secure him.
Yeah. So she goes through the house. She finds him, and
he's got surveillance video. He's watching all these people get attacked.
Yeah. just like a cop. So anyway, there's a bodyguard there, some guy named Kara, or some lady named Kara, I'm sorry, Steve's assistant. And, they just kind of watching all this go. So we get this scene where we see the police are on scene with Howlin' Henry, and we're snatched away again. So we're going back to where we were before this scene. Anansi tells Corson, "Let them go, Corson." He says, "Never. Her light can only interrupt my work." So she's trying to free her while this is kind of going on with these angels and stuff. And they're having a conversation. And the conversation is, come on, Nita, you got to help. He said, you think I'm not trying? Every time I move, they get tighter. Just go, Jason. She's kind of has accepted her fate in all of this. She thinks that she's not going to make it. And, he says, you have a lot of life left. Great things you can do. You can't give up. He's telling her what he's always tried to tell her. You can, don't just be where you are. He's trying to encourage her. And then Nancy, seeing this kind of go on, he has to kind of step in the middle of all of this exchange with Corson and tell her. He says, Jason's right, Nita. That's why Corson needs you to be here. You're a beacon of light in a sea of darkness. And so it's kind of like, the devil gets no joy out of tormenting a devil. Devils want angels. They want good. They want to be able to tempt or, seduce the light. Those of the light. That's where they get their joy. There's no joy in if you're evil or whatever. It's like, that's not really a big deal. It's kind of like the mayor. The mayor of Philadelphia kind of represents that. Mm-hmm. You're here, you're at my side or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But I don't get no joy with you being here. That's why he told me, good work, boss, shut up. he brings him no joy. But with a someone like Nita, that would bring him a level of joy that he can't get from, say, the mayor of Philadelphia. And so Jason says, open your mind. Negativity increases Corson's influence.
Actually, I think that's still Anansi saying that one.
Okay, you're right. That is Anansi. And so she's like, okay. And, she begins to believe it. The next one, I guess this is Jason. He says, free your mind, Nita, and the rest will follow. Remember that song?
Yeah.
That old song, that old In Vogue song Mama used to play? And I thought that was funny. So how they going to put In Vogue? An old song from the 90s. And I'm like, Will Rodney Bars is hilarious. So, but I mean, say to her point, or to his point, that's the truth. You free your mind and the rest will follow. And so she does that. She's able to be freed off the cross. And, there's a battle raging along or whatever. And, they having this moment, Jason and Nita, it's like, I love you, Jason. I love you. I love you too. And they said, could y'all please break up this beautiful moment of community theater and get the hell out of hell? It's like a Nazi doesn't want to be where he is. He's there because for them, but he really, really just not doesn't. He's really trying to get them out of their situation. And so, we see the angels, kind of getting into it with Corson and whatever. And she's like, we can't hold them off much longer. He's talking about, Anansi and the angels fighting Corson. And so he tells her, go into the light. And she's like, come with me. They still can't leave each other. This is some drama here, I tell you. So yeah. It's like, it's for you, sis. He's like, he'll be all right, just go. And so she goes into the light, and then she wakes up, where she is, she's like kind of looking at her hands with her, like, I'm back. She takes a gasp of air. And so that's interesting how that transpires.
So back to your question a little bit earlier about how did I feel about starting this with Jason's story. That scene is the reason why. Right. Now he's able to let her go, and she's gonna have to let him go too. Yes. This is the last we see of Jason.
Yes.
So far, yeah.
Yes. So, we get snatched right back into the situation at the Carpenter house, and Holly Henry's doing what Holly Henry does. He's got one more person to kill. And he's made his way into, I guess, the house. And he's on his way up. And, he gets almost to old boy and the officer.
But meanwhile, Nita, and I guess this is a hospital. There's one picture that clearly shows it's a hospital.
Yeah, she's leaving. Yeah, she's leaving the hospital.
I like these two pictures of the ambulance people sit
Yeah,
medical folks
that
in
was
the back
funny.
of the ambulance. Yeah.
That's messed up. She just drives off with them on.
So she grabs the ambulance and takes off to the Carpenter house.
That's funny, man.
Yeah.
So she drives off or whatever, right? And on her way to the Carpenter estate, I guess, Henry's, he's doing his thing. He said, my time has come. Can't wait no more. Let's wrap this up and leave the rest to Lord. And of course, he's at the door, whatever. He's getting ready he breaks in and he's getting ready to kill old boy. And, he gets popped. But before that happens, he grabs and somebody. I'm looking at this scene. I guess it's the assistant.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's the assistant. Grabs her.
Cara.
And then he says, somebody, this is funny because now we see Corson. Now we're not Corson. Yeah, we see Corson speaking in Henry's place. It is so weird. It gets it goes back and forth. But we definitely know this is Corson. That somebody had a party and didn't invite old Henry. And so they start firing bullets at him. And he says, bullets can't hurt a demon, Missy. And then here comes Henry. We hadn't heard from Henry in a while. But he says, hey there, Steve. Been a month of Sundays since I laid eyes on you. No singing. just straight conversation.
He's been waiting for a while for this.
So he's like, Henry, Howard Henry? Yeah, it's me, Steve. Old Howard Henry. Your favorite client still round town playing gigs. All I could do when you and your partner took away everything I had. He's like, no, it can't be you. I said, guess what? Got some new tunes I wrote just for you. And we ship away from that, and then we see the ambulance on its way. Nita's in there, and body parts all about. Henry's here. This is Nate. Now I get to kill myself trying to say Carpenter, unless and it's weird because she just escaped hell, and now she's getting ready to go into a situation where she might wind up right back in hell. So, but that's Nita. Hey. So, I thought that the next exchange was interesting in that when she gets there, she sees the police and she's like, don't shoot. I'm a college professor. And I said to myself, like, really, Nita?
He stole that from, what was it, Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
I'm a limo driver.
Yeah, so that was hilarious. That was a great Easter egg, man. So she rushes in. She's like, "Hey," and he looks at her like the one that shines. Like, did I just see you? And so she's talking to, of course, cut the BS course, and you're looking for 2 ass whoopings in one day. You're losing your grip on Henry. And that's not, and that's why he's not singing. So I don't know if that's the case, but she kind of thinks that that's what's happening. And it's weird because now we see this exchange between Corson and Henry. It's only a couple of panels or whatever, but it's interesting, nonetheless. So she tells him, she says, Carpenter and his partner, Harvey, both feel ripped off Henry back in his playing days. And so I guess Corson saw Henry's pain and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And Corson says, yes, and I'm not letting him go. But Henry shows up and says, like, that wasn't ideal, Corson. I killed in your name. Now let me make one more kill myself. Corson was like, fine. So, and then he goes into, points his finger at old boy, letting him know he's kind of savoring this moment. And it's interesting because Henry wants this for himself. He doesn't want Corson's power. He doesn't want, the stuff to come out of him. Or he wants to do this himself. And so the guy's looking at Henry, trying to apologize, and it is what it is. What does the cop do? Cops gonna be cops. Puts a couple straight, 3 shots straight into Henry. And it's interesting too because Nita goes toward Henry, and we hear Henry say, "Corson ain't done with you, girl. He ain't done." And that's it. So the cops come in.
Just do a quick shout out, Arthur English, for joining. And there's a question: what issue is this? This is issue number 6 of Nita Hawes Network.
Yes.
Your blog.
Yeah. So we get this situation happens, and cop comes over she goes over to Nita and she says, "Thank you." And then she's like, "Yeah." And it kind of ends. And then the next scene is kind of an epilogue of the issue. Where she, kind of closed out the cases in terms of how Henry goes. And, she doesn't hear from her Nazi no more. And she hasn't seen Jason either. And so it's kind of like, well, all's well that ends well. I guess I'll just fire up this blog and start helping people.
Yeah,
and
and she's clearly able to move forward because if you remember back in issue 1, she had a friend who was asking her to go to a concert, and she turned the friend down. She couldn't do it.
Right.
She wanted to be with Jason. Here, she's calling her friend, wanting to go to a concert. So that, plus the fact that from her time in hell, I think she's figured out that there's something special about her. She brings light to the world. That's her gift. That's her purpose. So
it's dope. I mean, it was. First of all, I want to shout out her for just having great taste. Robert Glasper is dope. So, I'm saying, shout out to any Robert Glasper fans out there. You can go get his music, check it out online on YouTube. The guy's an amazing jazz musician. Works with everybody, whether it's Michelle and Davey on cello, Jill Scott, list goes on. Guy's pretty amazing. So anyway, but now, we get that. Go ahead.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, you're probably just about to say the same thing. So you just saw the epilogue, but we got to have a post-credit scene, right? Of course. All right, so take us to the post-credit scene.
Yeah. So they're getting ready to take the carcass. That is Howlin' Henry's remains, and about to cremate him. So the guy's like, last one of the day, so thank the Lord. I guess they're getting ready to try to put him in, and the belt wouldn't move up. And he's like, well, go check the breaker. Maybe something happened with the breaker. They find the breaker, whatever, make a switch, I guess, or whatever. Turn around, where'd he go? The guy's like, well, maybe the belt started running and whipped him into the fire before we. This guy's like, yeah, let's just go with that. They didn't want no parts. It's like, yeah.
You got the music. And you got the music. You got the red letter music there.
Yeah. That which is funny though, because you hear the song. Oh, that's still that song I've been wanting to sing. It's about one old man sunning on his deck, just waiting for old Henry to break his neck. So we know that Henry is on his way to finish his job. And that's how the issue ends.
Henry with Corson inside of him because he got the red letters.
Yeah, man. So that's that was issue 5 and 6 of Nita Hawes' Nightmare Blog. And again, this upcoming Wednesday, the trade issues 1 through 6, this story arc will be available. So for those of you who may not have read the whole story or know the whole story, I recommend that you go get it. Go cop the back issues if nothing else. But that trade is available, I think, this upcoming Wednesday at your comic book shop. So, but that's been issue 5 and 6 for us.